AI will force us humans to double down on those talents and skills that only humans possess. The most important thing about AI may be that it shows us what it can't do, and so reveals who we are and what we have to offer.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Welcome back to our final episode in our AI mini-series. We have covered a lot of ground over the past 7 episodes, and today we're going to take a look at where AI is going and at some great resources for you to explore. As we get started, just a reminder to visit our website, teachereditionpodcast.com, to learn more about the show, to sign up for our newsletter, and also to submit questions for upcoming episodes. We're also Teacher Edition Pod on Instagram and TikTok, as well as Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook. And don't forget about YouTube. We are Teacher Edition Podcast there as well. There are many ways to catch these episodes, so please go check them out while you're there. Be sure to like, follow, and share them out with your coworkers. Now, I mentioned in one of the early sessions that AI is changing and improving so quickly that really what I share will be replaced and improved on almost immediately. Recently, I did some reading on what big tech and what big corporations are saying about what is coming in AI. I want you to listen to some of these predictions that they're giving. In healthcare, radiology, pathology, and even general practice will rely on AI to improve accuracy. Wearables and AI models will offer 24/7 lifestyle advice tailored to individual biology. We're already seeing some of this, aren't we? In the workforce, many jobs will be redefined rather than eliminated. Workers will need to work with AI. Roles requiring prompt engineering, data literacy, and ethical AI oversight will surge. Legal research, financial analysis, and software development will be partially or fully automated. Also in the workforce, non-experts will use AI to write books, build apps, make music, and design visuals easily. Did you catch that non-expert part? Realistic AI-generated avatars may be used for customer service, for therapy, and for virtual companionship. Most organizations will have teams or officers who focus on ethical implementation of AI. In society in general, the line between real and generated content will blur, raising trust and verification issues. People may expect 24/7 availability and perfectly polished responses, thanks to AI, changing relational expectations. In relationships, AI will be used more often as a sounding board or therapist for managing family, romantic, and professional relationships. AI will increasingly act as an emotional companion, especially for elderly, lonely, or neurodivergent. We're already seeing this happen. I've already heard about this in nursing homes where they're setting up an AI bot to keep the residents company. Some people may rely on AI for bedtime stories, educational support, or behavioral coaching, totally shifting parenting dynamics. In education, AI tutors will adapt in real time to students' strengths, weaknesses, and learning styles. That's happening. AI will support lesson planning, differentiation, and classroom management, acting as a real-time assistant. And I've seen reports where there's the thinking that just every classroom will have an assistant, an AI assistant in the classroom that's just every day doing some of this work for them, pulling reports, taking attendance, generating reports, all those different things just done automatically as like acting on behalf of that teacher. In relationships, children will learn social skills from AI, such as turn-taking and empathy. Kind of interesting thought, which may shape how they relate to others. I think we could take the may out of there. It will definitely shape how they relate to others because as we've talked about in these episodes, it's not realistic to be best friends with a bot. They tell you what you want to hear. They are very supportive. They are not necessarily biblical, and they just don't have quite the same experience as learning to deal with people. As AI handles more direct instruction, educators may focus more on guidance, coaching, and fostering human connection. Students may turn to AI for academic or emotional support, posing a challenge to the traditional teacher-student trust structure. And that's only the start. Those are just some really, really broad observations that I saw as I read through the different predictions. And frankly, it's a little scary to see what they're thinking of and what they're planning to do and what the possibilities are. The world is changing. And it's changing fast. And it's so amazing. We were actually just talking about this with some friends the other day, how people are okay with it. They are okay with handing out information. They are okay with, I even had a friend who was somewhere in a store and someone paid by just swiping their hand, the back of their hand. And it was a little scary for the person who was supposed to be taking the money, and they watched, said, what just happened there? But to the person doing it, it was no big deal. They had put something in their hand, and that's how they paid. And increasingly, people are becoming more and more comfortable with technology and giving up some of those things that have been guarded in the past. Wherever you are in this and however much you may use it or not use it, we must be AI ready. I don't expect for a moment that you will become an expert. I'm not going to be an expert. I'm not an expert. But we can't just ignore it. And that's kind of the same premise that we started out this series with. We have to know the basics. We have to keep growing, not only because it may be a help to us in what we do, but also because we are helping the next generation. We are training them and guiding them and preparing them for the next phase. And AI is definitely a part of that. A graphic that I think fits very well here in this discussion is the Gartner Hype Cycle for the release of technology. And I want you to look at this. So basically, the very start of this is, when that technology tool is released. So the technology trigger, it's released out there. And immediately it zooms high. They call it the peak of inflated expectations. Like, amazing, it can do everything. This is just an incredible tool. Look what it can cover. Look what it can do for us. And then quickly it drops to the trough of disillusionment. So you start to see the weaknesses. You start to see the things it cannot do. You start to see it can't do math, right? Those things that are like, okay, we thought it could do all this. Now we're learning it can't, and we drop way low. And then comes the slope of enlightenment, where we're starting to balance out of what it can do, what it cannot do, eventually getting to the plateau of productivity. And to me, that is the most important place that we can go. And if you just think right now in your mind, think of a tool that a technology tool that's out there. Think of Siri. Okay, I was in the classroom, when Siri came out, and it's like, wow. And we all thought, oh no, none of our students will ever do their homework again. They're all just going to ask Siri for all these answers. Well, then it dropped low because we realized it's not always accurate, and it doesn't always understand what you're asking, and you get frustrated with it, and it says weird things. Well, now where are we with Siri? It's hit that plateau. It's just part of daily life. Yes, there are still people who are abusing it and misusing it every day, and that's always going to be there because we live in a fallen world. But it has become, it's plateaued. It's now used for productivity. So where are we with AI? I don't know. Sometimes I think we're kind of just bouncing all over the place because we have great expectations and then it kind of drops down. But getting it to that plateau of productivity, teaching our students how to use it appropriately, getting them there as quickly as possible. And in our own lives, getting it to where it is, a productive tool for us as well. So I just wanted you to see that visual. I think that's often helpful because, every technology tool I have thought of, it applies exactly in there. Way high, way low, and we want to get to that area of productivity. So what was that first step? Do you remember way back we talked about the steps in preparing, being, as we're now talking about, AI ready? It was being knowledgeable. And you listening to podcasts, and hopefully you've tried out some of the tools and tried out some of the things that we've talked about over the past 7 episodes are helping you to be knowledgeable about AI. Whether you'll totally embrace it, be its best friend, you're an AI whisperer, or maybe you intend to only use it as necessary. It is so important that you're knowledgeable. So as we wrap up this mini series, I want to share some resources with you because you may want something you can read, look at more, learn more about it, and there's so much out there, and it's hard to know where to start. Some helpful resources that you find online. If you see any of these people, they have some really great. I really go for the things that are really easy to understand, very straightforward, very practical. So that's what you're going to see in these. First of all, Matt Miller. So I've already mentioned him. He has a great website. He does Ditch That Textbook. Here is actually one of the books that he wrote. This is an excellent book. It is a very easy read. You can see it's very short, but just very practical on how if you want to use AI in the classroom, these are some ways you can do that. So that is Matt Miller. Monica Burns is another one. She has a great podcast. I listen to her often. She just has a great way of introducing tools, making them very usable, very practical, and she has some good helps there. Eric Kurtz is another one. He is Control Alt Achieve is the name of his website, so you can look him up. I don't know if he ever sleeps. He must work tirelessly because he's always putting out new ideas. He does a great job asking people to, like, how is this working for you? What are you seeing? They've had a lot of conversations about school policies on AI, and people have shared those so others can learn from them. He just has a really great following as well, and he really encourages that collaboration. So check that out. That's Eric Kurtz, Control Alt Achieve. ISTE, if you're familiar with the International Society of Technology and Education, they have great resources. I have been to their most recent conference where they talked a lot about being AI ready. And I really love that approach. It's not about totally embracing it, getting in there, doing everything we can with AI for the sake of AI. No, they talked about being ready to use it appropriately to guide students in their usage. And I love that term, and I'm kind of borrowing that from them as we wrap up these sessions. So again, that is ISTE. Let me show you a few books as well. If you're interested in maybe some materials you can have at your school or use individually. First of all here, this is AI for School Leaders by Vicki Eccles. I have been to a session where she actually taught through the main parts of this book. Excellent. It's just really practical, down to earth, not just using it for the sake of using it, but really using AI for productivity in ways. And it is for leaders. I get that. It says 62 ways to lighten your workload and focus on what matters. So that's why it is really practical. But a lot of those workload things are things that teachers do as well. Here's another one, How to Teach AI. This is by Dr. Rochelle Poth. She has a number of different books. She just came out with a new one as well. I've been to a number of her sessions. Again, she's really practical. She keeps up with the newest tools. And not that we need to always embrace those, but it's really helpful to know what's out there and how to use those. And this just really, she talks about weaving strategies and activities into the different content areas. And so I know how it is. Sometimes you think, okay, I'm not opposed to AI, but how on earth would I use it in my classroom? These are some tools that can help with that. This one is by Michael Hernandez. It's called Storytelling with Purpose. And at first I shied away from this book because I was like, well, I know what storytelling is and I know how you can use it. And it's good maybe with projects and things like that. But this is fantastic. Digital projects to ignite student curiosity. He talks a lot about how we can reimagine our assessments. He talks about those projects, making them authentic, still learning what the students know, still staying very true to rigor and to our content, our standards, but doing it differently. So I really recommend that one. Here are two by Liz Kolb, Kolb. So Learning First, Technology Second. This is the first book, and then In Practice. And again, this is talking about the importance of keeping technology in order. We don't want to just do technology for technology's sake or put it out front. But she just gives some really, really great ideas in here of how to keep that balance. And then one other, so these are not necessarily, faith-based books here, but this one is, and it's called From the Garden to the City, The Place of Technology in the Story of God. This is not necessarily just about AI or tools or things like that. It is more about how we view technology. And I know there's a lot of push for screen time. And by the way, that's appropriate screen time. And it always cracks me up when I'm listening to different podcasts and things like that, and they're harping on appropriate screen time. And that means taking technology out of the classroom. No, that's not correct. That's where they learn to use it correctly. That's where they're using it to learn, to grow, and be ready for their next phase. No, it's not about playing Angry Birds in the classroom. It's about using it appropriately. So I'm, putting that caveat with it. But what about their use of it at home? What about different age groups using it? How do we use it? How dependent are we on it? How much has it become an accessory versus something that's really a tool? So just some interesting insights here about the role of technology in this day and age. Again, that's from the garden to the city. As with anything, we must exercise balance. So a couple overarching thoughts as we wrap up today. We want to maintain an appropriate and biblical balance between human and AI contributions. I know, easier said than done. But keep these statements before you as you try to calibrate the use of technology, specifically AI, in your own life and in your classroom. Don't replace tasks that make you think or that make your students think. Thinking is a good thing, and we don't want to replace those. Don't replace the human connection. This is how God made us. God made us. We need caring friends. We need counselors in our lives. And honestly, we need to learn to deal with people. So we want to be careful personally as we use these tools and also as we're working with students and we hear how they're using the tools to not replace that human interaction. Third, view all interactions through a biblical worldview, regardless of the cultural standard. Right now, AI is a tsunami. And you feel like, oh no, I better go with it, or I'm going to be left out or left behind. You know what? Our first and primary standard must be God's word, must be scriptures. It must be looking at this through a biblical worldview. And if what culture is doing is contrary to that, it's a no, regardless of what culture is doing. It is so important that we view this biblically, no matter how dramatic, how loud, how prominent it is right now in culture. Perhaps you have heard the statement. I'm going to wrap up with this because I haven't mentioned this too much along the way, but I know I hear this question a lot. I've been asked this many times. Maybe you have heard AI is going to take your job as a teacher. Studies show 20, 30, even more than that, higher percentage of jobs will be impacted, at the minimum 20 to 30%. We cannot ban AI. We can't ignore it. We can't hide from it. And honestly, today, there are people looking for ways to replace teachers. There are schools that are already completely AI run. There is one not too far from here. They go to school just a couple hours a day. It's completely taught by bots, and those bots are taking that student, input and are customizing those classes. I mean, it's an incredible concept, but is it right? And can bots really replace teachers? Personally, I don't believe that great teachers will ever be replaced by AI. But I really appreciate what Eric Kurtz said. He said, about teachers, AI will not take your job, but people who know how to use AI will. And he said it about teachers, but I really think it applies pretty widely. George Couros also said, technology will never replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of a great teacher can be transformational. Think about that. Technology will never replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of a great teacher can be transformational. That's exactly what we want. Do you know when he said this? Back in 2014. And again, that's ancient in technology world, right? But it still rings true today. And one more that I leave you with. This is from David Brooks in an article he wrote in the Age of AI. AI will probably give us fantastic tools. At the same time, AI will force us humans to double down on those talents and skills that only humans possess. The most important thing about AI may be that it shows us what it can't do, and so reveals who we are and what we have to offer. That's a lot, but think about it. The thing about AI is it may just highlight what we as teachers, we as human teachers need to do. Teachers do not need AI to be impacting. But I think we can safely say that AI needs teachers, right? AI is an incredible tool, but only teachers, only educators can bring certain elements to the table. And that's where we want to focus. How can we use AI, not replacing ourselves, but use it to be transformational in our classrooms? So that brings us to the end of our mini-series. But I trust this will only be the start of your learning and growing in the topic of AI. As I said, You aren't expected to be an AI expert. Very few ever will, but you can be AI ready. And I hope this very simplistic, very high level flyover of AI has been a help to you as you navigate these days in technology. Thank you again for taking time to tune in for these episodes, and we look forward to having you back next time as we welcome back more guests to the show. Just a reminder to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show and to submit questions for upcoming episodes. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and go follow us on social media. Now, it's time to get back to your day, but it's not just any day. Every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and through His grace working in you. Now go do what God has called you to do.